Today I'm joined by Senator David Fawcett. I'm also joined by Minister David Pisoni, the Minister for Innovation and Skills, Kim Scott, who is he's the chairperson and has been working very, very hard to establish the Australian Cyber Collaboration Centre. Sharon Williams is here with us from BAE. Hai Tran, who has just been appointed as the Chief Executive of the Australian Cyber Collaboration Centre, joins us today. And he has only arrived in South Australia a few days ago. Have you had your PCR test yet or not? No, he came from Western Australia, so all's fine with the people in Western Australia. So, look, it is a fabulous day for us as a state as we open the Australian Cyber Collaboration Centre. It is such an important and growing area in terms of the threat that it poses to data, but also in terms of the opportunity in terms of employment here in South Australia. I've got to tell you, when I first became the Premier of South Australia, one of the first meetings that I chaired was the meeting of the Emergency Management Council in South Australia, and we received a report from our very hard-working CISO in South Australia, David Goodman, and he said to me, or presented to the Emergency Management Council and told us about the sheer breadth of the number of attacks, cyber attacks and threats, and that changing threat which existed. And so we have taken that extraordinarily seriously since day one. But the flip side of threat is opportunity, and that's what we've established here with the Australian Cyber Collaboration Centre. This is a large commercial range, the largest in Australia, a large training academy, making sure that we have the skills ready to be deployed to protect data here, whether it be in the government sector, all three tiers, or whether it be in the private sector. And what we know is that this is absolutely congruent with what the federal government is doing. Most recently, the federal government has announced $1.35 billion worth of investment into our cyber preparedness in Australia over the next 10 years, and every level of government will be doing, will be making similar types of investments. We'll be doing it here in South Australia. I know that many of the other premiers around Australia are also looking at this area. But the great thing for South Australia is we thought about this 2 years ago. We put these plans in place. We worked with a great board who really represent great capability across Australia to establish the Australian Cyber Collaboration Centre. So super excited today, and this new facility is opening at precisely the right time, absolutely precisely the right time. It's a very happy day for us in South Australia. I'm now going to ask Kim Scott whether he might come forward and make a few comments as the chair, and I would genuinely like to thank him for all the great work that he has done in setting this up, pulling together a fantastic board, working with the Department of Innovation and Skills, and of course going through the recruitment for our first Chief Executive, Hai Tran. Kim.
Thank you, Premier. Firstly, I'd like to really commend the leadership of the state government and the foresight to establish a centre such as this. It is unique. There is no other centre like this in Australia. A3C is a mission-driven, not-for-profit organisation that's been launched today. We've got 4 key missions, and those key missions essentially are training and upskilling of cyber professionals. We have a significant shortage of around 2,000 immediately in the Australian market, with a projection of around 18,000 shortage of cyber professionals in the next 5 years. We're also looking at assisting in launching new cyber products and services right here from Lot 14 as part of our capability, and building cyber resilience and awareness. And the last main mission we've got is collaborating to solve the real-world problems that exist in cyber. What we find is those who are attacking our networks are collaborating out in the darknet all the time. We need to match that level of collaboration on the good side, and that's what we're going to be doing here at A3C. To deliver those 4 missions, we've got a number of services we're delivering, obviously training services here in the Cyber Academy, where you are today. We're also looking at simulation training for executives and people within every organisation, both academic as well as government and private organisations. We're also doing testing services, which is going to be very relevant for the Defence Force and other organisations where we have critical infrastructure at risk. And then we're also providing workforce services where we're trying to encourage people to take a career within the cyber environment. I think I'll just leave it there. happy
Any
to
questions for
take
Kim,
questions
the
or...
first instance, or myself?
Yeah, I guess there are probably a lot of private entities out there worried about their cyber security. Is this something that they can get involved in, and what would you recommend they do to make sure that they're
Absolutely.
ready to go?
A3C wants to be and will be the centre point for cyber. It's quite a complex and confusing marketplace, and a lot of the small to medium enterprises, which are often targeted by attackers because they are the weak underbelly.
Would you mind directing the answer
Sure.
down the middle? Sorry.
Sure. So A3C has been set up to actually support a lot of the small to medium enterprises that do struggle with resources and staffing to be able to address the challenge that cyber gives us. One of the things that we're looking at doing is really unlock the complexity of cyber and give them an understanding of how to practically protect their networks against the ongoing and emerging threats that continue.
So what would that look like? I mean, we've heard stories about Landmark White and many stories like this over the last couple of years. So what would it look like when a company comes to you and says, we want better protection? How will you help them?
So we'll be able to work with that company and identify the kind of issues that they're facing, look at the threat environment, look at the kind of things that they can do practically with limited resources they will have and put them in place into their networks and give them advice as a not-for-profit and as an independent organisation. We won't be vendor specific, we'll be looking at a range of solutions that we can provide and advice to. Well, actually, we're a membership organisation, so part of the benefit of joining A3C, you will get under that membership advice. You'll also get some training services as well as testing services, and they'll be a fee for service.
And what's the membership cost?
Membership varies right from the large organisations. Our very top tier is around a $40,000 membership, down to sort of around $400 to $500 for the very lowest level of membership. Sure.
Job shortfalls in this sector going forward. Just how bright is the future, you think, for jobs in South Australia when it comes to cyber?
Look, there's just an enormous opportunity for careers in cyber and digital. At the moment, we have more than 200 new traineeships and apprenticeships in cyber and digital here in South Australia across the private and the public sector. David Busoni has been working with Minister Gardner to set up that training SOC. Some of you would have seen earlier in the year down at Adelaide TAFE. There are more and more jobs in this area. It's going to be a jobs bonanza in terms of cyber. But let's not forget why we're doing it. The cyber threat is large, it's growing, it's changing, it's ever present. And what we know is that we have got to be prepared. We've got to respond to this threat. The good news is that there are jobs coming, and there are a lot of jobs coming, and that's why we've set up the Australian Cyber Collaboration Centre.
How many people will be working in the A3C?
Well, that might be a good
Sorry, I
question
should have
for
asked you, Kim.
Kim or Hai. Did you want to make any comments?
Well, firstly, I'm excited to be in South Australia, to come back after 30 years. I never thought South Australia would be such an innovative and a passionate place about cyber and IT. I've been here for a week now, and the organisation is not about buildings and technology, it's about the people, and I'm surrounded by passionate people. I've never seen so many people from industry, government and academia all working together so hard. So in terms of our delivery model, we are open for business, and our model is about collaborating. So we're not going to have a huge workforce, we're about linking demand with supply. So if we can link the senior executives with the right consulting, if we can link the right technologies with the right demands, we'll have a larger ecosystem. So we're not about creating a new entity that's going to compete against all other organisations. We're about bringing the right ones together in a collaborative way. And as a not-for-profit, independent organisation, we can provide that advice based on real-world best practice from global thinking. So that's why we're not going to grow. We're going to be operating as a lean startup. We will spend the taxpayers' money very wisely, and we'll invest where investment's needed, but we'll promote jobs and growth for the state.
So how many staff do you have?
Well, initially we're thinking about a team of 6 core staff just to operate and get the range going. 6 to 10 is normally a great number for a lean startup, and to actually be focused on a single mission rather than spread too thin.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Australian Cyber Collaboration Centre. Very, very happy to have you all here today. This has been a lot of hard work from a lot of people in this room, and we're very, very honoured to have you all with us today. Before we start, I'd like to acknowledge that the land we meet on today is the traditional lands for the Kaurna people, and we respect their spiritual relationship with this country. I also acknowledge that the Kaurna people are the traditional custodians of the Adelaide region, and their cultural and heritage beliefs are still as important to the living Kaurna people today. My name's Mohan, and I'm the CTO and co-founder of Dtex Systems. Before we start today's event, I'd like to formally acknowledge and welcome, obviously, the Honourable Stephen Marshall, Premier of South Australia, the Honourable David Pisoni, Minister for Innovation and Skills, South Australia's first Chief Entrepreneur, Jim Wally, South Australia's Chief Scientist, Professor Carolyn McMillan, and Kim Scott, the Chair of the A3C, and the other A3C board members who are present today, Mr. Jeff Rorsheim and Miss Libby Day, and via link, who you'll be meeting later on, Miss Michelle Price and Mr. Alistair McGibbon. Welcome everybody to the A3C. Collaboration is absolutely the most imperative thing in cybersecurity today. As Kim Scott mentioned before in the press briefing, the bad guys are so good at collaborating. They have always been good at collaborating, and we are so far behind the 8 ball where we stand today. And that is why the Australian Cyber Collaboration Centre is not just important to the national cybersecurity agenda, it is of vital importance to the world. We need to get back on top of the situation, and we are taking steps to do so right here, right now. And none of this would be possible without a leader who's committed to the vision and understands it implicitly. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome the Premier for South Australia, Stephen Marshall.
Well, thanks, Mohan. I too would like to acknowledge that today we're meeting on the traditional lands of the Kaurna people and that we acknowledge their ongoing spiritual relationship with this precious land. I am so excited. I am just genuinely so excited about today. And this is something that, quite frankly, we've been talking about since virtually the day we got into government. And to be here today to open this centre is just a great joy. I was saying before a little earlier that one of the first meetings I chaired as the incoming Premier was the Emergency Management Council meeting, and David Goodman, our fantastic Chief Information Security Officer in South Australia, came to that meeting and he said, the risk is large and it's getting larger. And he was smiling when he said it. Now, I don't know whether that's just his way of dealing with stress or whether he could see what I think we've been able to realise here, and that is the flip side of threat is opportunity. And I genuinely believe this is going to be one of the largest growing sectors that exists anywhere in the world going forward. And I've basically told everybody I know this for a long period of time. In fact, I was so enthused with my cabinet that they, to try and get on my good side, developed their own rating system, giving themselves points and gold stars every time they talked about cyber. So they'd get a couple of stars if they mentioned it in Parliament, extra stars if they mentioned it at a press conference or in a press release, and I think about 5 or 10 stars if they got onto television at night. But I think it was important for the entire cabinet to really share in this passion for being at the forefront of a growing sector. And that's exactly where we are at the moment. We are at the forefront of this massively exploding sector internationally. And as I was saying before, I think every household, every individual, every business has insurance on their real property assets. Who would not have insurance on their warehouse or on their vehicles? But the most important asset for any organisation going forward is their digital assets. And what we know is that their digital assets are increasingly under threat from a growing, sophisticated enemy who is doing everything they can to infiltrate the increasing protections that we're put in place. So the threat is large, the threat is growing, the threat is changing, and now we have the Australian Cyber Collaboration Centre here on Lot 14. And I think this couldn't have possibly happened at a better time. There is just no chance this could have happened at a better time. Senator Fawcett's with us here today from the federal government. Only 2 weeks ago, they announced $1.35 billion, $1.35 billion going into advancing and upgrading our cyber preparedness and resilience here in Australia. And this is a very significant announcement from our Prime Minister, the Honourable Scott Morrison. And I know that it's not just the federal government, it is the state governments and also the local governments who are increasingly focused on identifying the risk to their organisations, mitigating against those risks, being prepared with their cyber resilience and recovery plans. And that's why we've decided to form the Australian Cyber Collaboration Centre here, was to bring together some of the best minds in Australia, but importantly, some of the best minds around the world. And so we've reached out to our Five Eyes and friends around the world to work with us on this. And we're really delighted that we are working not only with our fabulous universities in Australia and most importantly here in South Australia, but also with Carnegie Mellon, also with the University of Maryland, and also with our friends in Brittany, where we know that they also have an excellent capability. And also we have now signed an MOU with the MITRE Corporation, which is just such a thrill for us to be collaborating and working together with MITRE. And I know that a lot of people are very, very excited about the possibilities. They've already announced one project which will be working with the utilities sector, and there's another announcement which I think will be coming very, very soon. So, how did this come about? Well, I've got to tell you, David Goodman has been very, very influential, but so has Mohan. I mean, this guy is a live wire. He's taught me about cyber since the first moment that I met him, on the threat side, but also, as I said, on that opportunity side. And he's a very proud South Australian. He's lived right around the world. He's come back to Adelaide now. And the good news is that he uses that international network to promote the opportunity, the great opportunity that we have here in South Australia. So I genuinely want to say a massive, massive thank you. One, for bringing Dtex back to Adelaide, and two, bringing yourself and your family back to Adelaide, and three, just the incredible effort and energy and passion that you are helping us with here in South Australia. I also want to very much thank the board. These centres don't just happen by accident, and Kim Scott, who's standing up the back there, has done an incredible job. Sorry, somebody looks like you when you've got to get some new glasses. That's a hacker. It's a hologram that we had made earlier. So, Kim, thank you very much, sir, for the great effort. You've had an extraordinary career in defence. I don't think there's one person in the defence world, certainly in Australia, that doesn't know of your contribution over an extended period of time. I couldn't think of anybody better to be leading the organisation. So thank you very much. But also to Libby Day, Jeff Rorsheim, Alistair McGibbon, and of course Michelle Price. And I think Michelle might be speaking to us. Talk about enthusiasts. I mean, Michelle, Mohan, I mean, it's a competition. Who would win with the grand final in terms of passion for cyber? So it's great that they're both speaking today. And it's right on Lot 14, and I know I bang on a lot about Lot 14. It's because I'm very excited about Lot 14, because every month that goes past, there is more and more that is coming onto this site. And it's great to have Di Dixon with us today. She's in charge of all of that. But can I just tell you, to now have a precinct like this with the Australian Space Agency headquarters and mission control, and soon we will have the Space Discovery Centre, to have the Australian Institute of Machine Learning headed up by Anton van den Hengel and his absolutely world-class machine learning team, to have MIT, the #1 ranked university in the world, on site with their living lab, to have the largest space-related project or research project in the history of Australia, right here, the Smart Satellite CRC, to have Stone and Chalk on site, which is absolutely fantastic, and now, of course, the Australian Cyber Collaboration Centre. And what we decided to do early on was to not have this groundbreaking precinct controlled by government, but it is all basically curated by an entrepreneurial advisory council, and of course our very first chief entrepreneur, Jim Wally, who is with us here today. And this was really important because we needed this to be a collaborative space. We needed to have that spontaneous interaction between the private sector, researchers, academia, startups, scale-ups, global primes, all coming together on this site. And having Jim involved with his incredible experience has been absolutely fantastic. So we're extraordinarily generous to you. We're very grateful to you, Jim, for your generosity. Can I just say that on this site already, as it's open, we've got some fabulous foundation tenants. We've got AusCyber, we've got the SA node, which has moved here, the Department of Science, Defence Science and Technology, Dtex, which I mentioned earlier. We've got our own Office for Cyber Security here, Optus, the University of Adelaide and the University of South Australia. And I know that there are many other conversations which are going on at the moment as well. And in fact, I don't know whether I'm allowed to announce it or not, but I think everybody's been twisting my arm every time I come down here. They say we need more space. It's going to fill out really soon. So I know David Bissoni and David Ridgway are working very hard to make sure that we can announce fairly soon an expansion of the size, the footprint that we have on this site, because I just know that it is going to be taken up. So a massive thank you to everybody who is here with us today. I think every single person in this room has played a very important role to get us to where we are. Probably the person who is in the hot seat now is Hai Tran. Can I just say it's an absolute pleasure that you have returned to South Australia. We know that you've had a fabulous career in the private sector with drones and also most recently in security as the CISO for the Western Australian Police Force, which is acknowledged as an absolute national leader in terms of that area. We couldn't believe our luck when you applied, and I know that Kim and the team here were just super excited, and I'm super excited. I think this place is going to absolutely pop, and I'm just so grateful to be here with you all today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Premier Marshall. You've been an absolute guiding light for us, and we just could not have done it without you. I think everyone will agree. I've never heard a politician be able to speak with that much conviction about cyber before, and you certainly have really led us to the right place here today. So I'd like to now obviously welcome Kim Scott up to the microphone, please.
Thank you, Mo. Premier, Minister Bissoni, Senator Fawcett, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, I would like to really commend the leadership and foresight of the state government in this initiative. It is a unique centre. Nowhere else in Australia does a centre like this exist. So hats off to the foresight to achieve that. We are a mission-driven, not-for-profit organisation. So we operate in an agility mode. We are able to change as the threat changes, which is an important key element of the operating model. One of the things that we're focused on, I should say 4 key missions that we've got. And those key missions are actually outlined in the overview that you will have on your chair. So feel free to have a look through that as we have morning or afternoon tea. Those 4 missions essentially cover training and upskilling of cyber professionals. I mentioned that we're short around 2,000 currently, cyber professionals in Australia, with the growth of that number to be about 18,000 in the next 5 years. So a significant challenge for us to deliver on that mission, but we are here to do that. Assistance in launching new cyber products and services right out of here at Lot 14 and collaborate to do that. Building cyber resilience and awareness. There is a need to increase everyone's awareness. It is everyone's problem. And then finally, collaborating to solve some of those real-world, difficult cyber problems. And we already heard from Mo, and I mentioned it at the press conference, that that's really the differentiator for us. Us being able to collaborate like the bad guys do, we intend to match that effort. To deliver on those 4 missions, and more importantly, to be self-sufficient by 2023, we've identified 3 main revenue or service lines. The first one is training services, and that's the Cyber Academy. You are in the Cyber Academy. We can split this room into 2. We can do red team against blue team. We can do a number of training sessions, both online and in classroom. In fact, our first course on cybersecurity incident handling and digital forensics will be conducted from the 27th of July to the 7th of August. So those that are keen to participate in that, the course is open for enrolment. That course material is coming from Azon, which is an Italian company in cybersecurity, and being delivered by in concert with Matt Sorrell from the University of Adelaide. So I would encourage people to get in. There's probably 20 to 30 positions, so we believe they will book out very quickly. The second service is through testing services. So we have a cyber test range. It is the largest cyber commercial test range in Australia. Again, it's behind a hidden wall that we can't show you right now, and a lot of it will be virtual and online. That cyber range will not only be used to test products and services, so that we have products and services coming out of South Australia, but it'll also be used as part of our training environment. So we'll be able to do C-suite training, and one of the things that we're looking at launching very soon is C-suite simulations. So the actual CEOs, the CTOs, the CFOs can come in here, actually experience in a live environment exactly what it looks like to see data exfiltrating out of their networks, and then what do? How do they respond? It's really looking at how they respond and what they need to work on. I think until you see it live, you really don't realise how hard it is to challenge and control those things. It is always said that it's not a matter of if you're going to be attacked, it's when you're going to be attacked, or maybe you've already been attacked and you don't actually know. The third element is workforce services. You've heard a lot about the fact that we are short-staffed in cyber. We're looking at assisting with recruiting, at doing assessments, using the range and the simulations we can do, and also career mobilisation, getting young people to see cyber as a great career, and particularly a lot more females. We only have about a 17% participation rate. We want to increase that significantly. Things that part of that service will include will maybe CISO as a service. So a Chief Information Security Officer is a cost that a lot of the smaller companies can't afford. Those small companies can maybe share that cost around 5, and we can have a CISO per one day a week for some of these small companies. It can be quite a confusing and complex environment, cyber, particularly for the SMEs who don't have the resources to apply to it. You've heard recently about the attacks that have occurred on the big companies, and you think about the small to medium enterprise that don't have the kind of resources. Their IT guy is someone that knows about computer. They don't have the level of capacity to actually defend. And they're the guys that get around 50% of the attacks. They are the vector that the bad guys look to enter the supply chain through. We aim to be a single point of call. So we want to remove that complexity. We want organisations to come to us and we can demystify them and identify practical and pragmatic solutions that we can put in place for those SMEs. Cyber is a business risk. You heard already from the Prime Minister in recent times about the increasing threat and the scale of that threat. We need to make it everybody's responsibility. Just like safety is now everybody's responsibility, just like quality is everyone's responsibility, cyber is everyone's responsibility. And that's what we intend to do as part of our mission. At the end of the day, this is the start of the journey. We'll know we have been successful when Adelaide is regarded as the centre of cybersecurity innovation in the Southern Hemisphere, and the state government in this great state of South Australia is the safest state in which to do business. We'll also have significantly increased the number of cyber professionals. We'll also have created a new group of innovative cyber products and services. And we'll take that confusion away from those organisations that currently don't know what to do in order to protect themselves against the emerging threats. Just finally, I wanted just to spend a little short amount of time just thanking some of those that have been on this journey for the last 12 months. As you'd appreciate, something like this doesn't happen easily. There's a lot of hard work that goes in behind the scenes. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge Adam Reid, Acting Chief Executive of the Department of Innovation Skills. Adam has been on this journey from the get-go and has been so supportive and so pragmatic in how he's helped us implement the A3C. Included is his team within DIS, who have been doing a lot of work behind the scenes. Seda Kent, who's the project manager for this, Jennifer Rajput, who's the office manager, Diana Tembak, who's done all the membership agreements, all the legal agreements, Lou Jansen, who's our finance guy, has been challenging us on budgets and how we make money out of the organisation, Stephanie Wasley, who's our marketing comms and done all our work on the website and has coordinated a lot of today's with her team, today's event. And Lucy Davis, who's just recently joined us to support Stephanie in some of the branding and comms. I'd also mention David Goodman, Office of Cybersecurity, and Paula Oliver, who is the OST Cyber SA Node Manager. We've also had a number of contractors, Matt Hunter from Fourth Harmonic, Derek Grokey and Daniel Floriani from CyberOps, and most recently Mark Ogden, who joined us as interim CEO. He spent the last three or so months really just helping us get set up so that when Tran arrived last week, he was able to hit the ground running, which he certainly has done. So I appreciate that, all your efforts, Mark. I'd also like to thank members of the steering committee who were in place for about 7 months before the board was formed in February, and many of the steering committee members are here today. And finally, my fellow board members. And on that note, I believe we have got a video first of all from Michelle Price, and then following that, Alastair McGibbon.
I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. I pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. I'm sorry I can't be with you today to celebrate the launch of the Australian Cyber Collaboration Centre, but absolutely I'm there with you in spirit. What an amazing milestone to be celebrating in the maturity of the Australian cybersecurity industry. But more than that, what an amazing celebration of the way in which we can collaborate across the economy to solve these complex problems that we find ourselves facing in a cyber-physical world. And to be able to unlock the true value of bringing together the expertise of governments, industry and academia to be able to foster growth through trust and confidence in all of our organisations, to manage risk and really go after bigger prizes. I'm proud to be on the A3C board and also bring with me the organisation that I represent in AustCyber and our innovation node that we have in Adelaide inside the A3C and Lot 14. I congratulate Premier Marshall on putting so much investment within this environment to demonstrate and show the world that Australia truly does have its game on when it comes to cyber industry and growth and prosperity through a resilient cyber economy. At AustCyber, we are seeing the true value of what happens when you bring business into an environment that can collaborate with cyber industry to be able to grow and prosper together. By being able to demonstrate how you develop global competitiveness at the same time as being able to deepen the understanding of the complexity of the risks and see how cyber risk is a business risk and not an IT risk, to disarm that complexity and understand how we move forward, we really can grow together. So for business leaders who are part of the launch today, your call to action really is about making sure that all of your organisations understand that we're in this together. No question is a silly question. The centre really is about being able to unlock the ability together to solve problems and be able to grow your business. The centre is not just for the cyber industry, although we will see lots of collaboration happening between organisations within our own industry. But being able to demonstrate the value of cybersecurity across every sector of the economy is really what A3C is all about. The commitment that you have from me and the other A3C board members is that we are here to understand your needs. The practical application of cybersecurity is something that needs to continue to evolve. It needs to evolve daily as much as it needs to evolve over time. We really can stand together, shoulder to shoulder, to stick it back at these malicious actors that keep coming at us and demonstrate that Australia really does have the force for change, that we are here to push back at the same time as being able to grow. The A3C is such an important legacy in that environment, and I'm proud that we've arrived at this day to be able to show the world that really it's game on. Well done everyone, and have a great day.
Good morning, it's Alastair McGibbon here. I'm really sorry I can't be with you personally at the launch of the centre this morning. The actual launch of the centre itself is highly significant, and much of this is due to the leadership of the Premier, Stephen Marshall. While the cybersecurity discussion in this country has matured dramatically over the last several years, the leadership of the Premier has been important as well. Not just the investment of money in the Australian Cyber Collaboration Centre, but the investment of his actual personal leadership as well, which is a significant part of how this centre has evolved and how it will actually help lead Australia on the cybersecurity map. as we understand that cybersecurity remains one of the great existential threats to our economy and our society, I'm extremely confident that the Australian Cyber Collaboration Centre will play a leading role in ensuring that we help address this problem.
Everyone, please help me in thanking Kim, Michelle, and Alistair. Well, now it gives me great pleasure to dial three very, very important international cybersecurity leaders in from all around the world. If you could please help me to welcome at my far end there, Tobias Feakin, the Australian Ambassador for Cyber Affairs. We have Julie Bowen in the middle here. She's the Senior Vice President of Operations and Outreach, and she's also the Group General Counsel for MITRE Corporation, and she comes to us from the Virginia area in the US. And Rachel Falk, right here next to me, who is the CEO of the Cybersecurity Cooperative Research Centre. Please put your hands together, folks. Rachel, if we could start with you, please. If you wouldn't mind giving us a little bit of background on the Cybersecurity CRC and giving us a little bit of an indication why the A3C is so important to your role at the Cybersecurity CRC.
Well, thanks very much, Maura, and thank you so much for having me here today. I too want to congratulate everyone involved in the centre, particularly the Premier, Stephen Marshall, and the board, and so many people who made this come through today, and a success so far. I was feeling a little nervous as the Premier was talking. The Collaboration Centre sounds a lot like what I do, so maybe it'll take over from the CRC one day. But very similar themes, and it's so terrific to see South Australia forge ahead with this. Collaboration is everything, and here at the Cyber Security Cooperative Research Centre, collaboration is very much part of what we do too. So the A3C is important because it's almost like what we do, but a little bit on steroids and all in one place. You have the benefit of having a lot of people in the one place. My participants are spread out all across Australia, so that's a little bit more different. But collaboration is everything. We live cybersecurity every day, and as was mentioned before, this is a real world risk. It's not just a business risk, it's a risk for governments, it's a risk for individuals, it's a risk for everyone. And having everyone in the one place is great for us. We're a very enthusiastic member of A3C because for us too, it allows us to collaborate with our existing participants, get closer to ones who may not have been. But what it shows is that everyone is involved with a common goal. It's really important that everyone understands the risk and is driven by this mission to make not only the great state of South Australia safer, but Australia and the world. And if we can become a harder target all round, that makes it easier for all of us. So I think it's fabulous for us. I felt a little nervous, but I shall embrace that. But it is fabulous to have just willing participants on every level in the country.
Fantastic, thanks, Rachel. And you know, one of the things just to clear up for folks in the room and online with us here today, you know, we were talking yesterday, I think it was, about projects where the Cybersecurity Cooperative Research Centre can help stand up a program and then deliver it through to the A3C to actually deliver it on the ground. Would you like to just elaborate on that a little bit for us?
Absolutely. We've got a pilot program we're about to start with the Premier. It was actually the Premier's idea that we run a pilot program for small businesses and security. We tend to throw a lot of manuals at small business, and it's one of the hardest nuts to crack in the cybersecurity space. So what we want to do is work with some great great small organisations in South Australia, together with Optus and the Australian Cybersecurity Centre, and perhaps some of our students, but also hopefully the University of Adelaide, and bring some of the challenges to life, do a little bit of practical research, and then hand that over to A3C to say, take this forward and bring this to life for more than the pilot. That's really important. I mean, if I can say one thing is, we're about over here in the Cybersecurity Cooperative Research Centre, we're about research in all its forms. So, micro-credentialing, honours, summer students, masters and PhDs. But one thing I have learned here is you don't just do a PhD because you want to become an academic. Toby Feakin is a great example of that. You might just want to be an expert in a particular area. But, and I'm showing my age here, as Phil Collins once said, you can't hurry love, You can't hurry deep research. So it's really, really important there's a place for deep, long-term research in everything we do in Australia because it will pay dividends.
Thank you, Rachel. And I'm sure there's a bunch of Phil Collins fans in the audience today looking out across. I'm going to move across to you now, Tobias. Obviously, given your title, your role as the ambassador for Australia on cybersecurity is super important to our engagement with the international community. Can you please share with us how you've seen that engagement with the international community evolve over the last couple of years that you've been in the role? And how do you see A3C supporting that?
Absolutely. Mo, look, thanks so much for having me today. It's a real privilege to be on the same panel with Julie and Rachel, two genuine cyber leaders in their field. So very humbling to be with you guys. And was always really excited when I got to meet Premier Marshall and his, real kind of inspiration around this project, and yourself, Mo. So it's great to be here at the launch. What have I learned in 3 and a bit years of this job? Genuinely, what I've learned is the evolution of the cybersecurity ecosystem from an economic perspective, and especially around our region. So it's a real privilege that, for the first 3 years of this job, I got to travel a huge amount and experience different innovation cultures, what kind of startups were fostering themselves in different parts of the world. And it was electric going into Southeast Asia and just seeing how the digital economy is just driving changes in not only the way societies lived and breathed, but the way that the economies were shifting very, very rapidly and still are. And probably even more so now in many respects as we've all shifted so quickly to online practices. So for me, it's been that excitement of seeing what's been going on globally and then trying to work out, well, how then do we promote ourselves best into that environment? How do we take what's best of breed here in Australia and that kind of startup ethos here and make sure that's working best internationally? And, use one of the terms in which, embodies your center, it's collaboration. I couldn't possibly do my job without the collaboration that I've had from other partners. Rachel has been superb in supporting the work that we do here. Cyber has been really helpful in reaching out to take Australian companies out there into the market. All of our post structures that Australia has, and it's extensive, have been integral in sharing what Australia has to offer. Can we do more? Yes, we can always do more. And you asked me the question of what you guys can do. Well, I'm excited by what kind of innovation culture comes out of that kind of investment and the melting pot that you have in that broader Lot 14 environment. All of those different innovation cultures coming together to deliver better cybersecurity results. Well, I personally can't wait to harness some of that and make sure that I'm representing those companies and what it is you do, as well as the rest of Australia, as best I can, and we as the Australian government promote that as best as we can in the international environment.
Absolutely. And I think, one of the things that I've noticed as I've travelled through the cybersecurity industry in some of the parts of the world is that wherever we go, the word trust seems to come back to us here in Australia, where, regardless of which country we operate in, most organisations and most cultures will look at Australia and say, we like the Australians, we can trust them. And in the cybersecurity industry, there is nothing more important than trust. And I wonder, do you think that puts us in a really strong position to kind of, leap forward in terms of the technology game and leap forward in terms of cyber protection?
So I think, I couldn't agree with you more strongly. And again, the privilege of getting to represent Australia globally is seeing the brand that Australia brings to the table is phenomenal. And trying to bottle that up and bring it home and make everyone aware of how good that branding is tough at times. Let's be honest, sometimes we don't hype ourselves enough. We don't pump our chests out and, express how great we are at certain things. I think, we need to shift that, because we do have some awesome technology propositions here in Australia. We have some awesome cybersecurity companies, startups and collaborative centres like your own, and we need to be more confident in promoting not only what it is we do well, but what it is that our brand brings to the table. So, I think that self-confidence, we need to be more assured of being very vocal about that. And I think it will go an incredibly long way, especially when we put that into the context, which I'm dealing with all the time, is that geopolitical shift where we're seeing technology, cybersecurity issues ever more central to the way that we all relate to one another as nation states, not just as citizens. So having that great Australian brand to bring into the equation, to provide solutions, to provide that trust and comfort that things are being done well, appropriately, and to certain standards and with certain values is fabulous as far as I'm concerned. So the more we can get that out there, the better.
Absolutely, and that's pretty much a call to action. I read that as a call to action, Tobias, and it's not just in the cybersecurity industry. Here at Lot 14, we have to be encouraging all of our entrepreneurs and all of our people working in this innovation ecosystem to actually stand up and be proud of what they're doing. If you compare the way that the Americans, for an example, are, when they do something that is remotely unique or remotely amazing, they stand up and they shout from the treetops, and we're very, very poor at doing that. I think we have to change that, as Tobias is saying. We are especially good at certain things, and we're not as good at promoting ourselves at that, and that's something that we really have to step forward and do. So thank you very much for that, Tobias. That's a really, really strong point for us. And, following on from that point, it's a really good segue to you, Julie. I think there might be some people in the audience here and those that are joining us online who might not know what MITRE Corporation is, how important MITRE Corporation is as an organisation to the USA, and also to the rest of us in the cybersecurity landscape. Would you mind just giving us a brief intro to yourself and MITRE, please?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. First of all, let me say how thrilled I am to be here. We've been talking about this day for well over a year, and as you know, I anticipated being there, but with the help of technology, it's great we can all be together. So I'm very, very excited. If I can't be there, in person, it's the next best thing. So MITRE is a 60-year plus established research and development center that works across government and in the public interest. All areas of it started with the US government, however, chartered in the public interest to look across the landscape and solve problems to make the world safer. And cybersecurity is a thread that crosses all of the work we do. And when I found out about all the great things that Australia's doing, MITRE operates the only cybersecurity center in the US for research and development, sponsored by our Department of Commerce and located in the state of Maryland with the University of Maryland in its partnership, and with great help and support from Governor Hogan, who also has been very supportive of the work you're doing. So anything we can do to make the world safer, to expand the cybersecurity and resiliency thread, we're just thrilled to be a part of.
Fantastic, thank you. Now, MITRE was one of the first international organisations, along with BAE Systems, to sign up as a partner of the A3C. And MITRE has been especially active, I would say proactive. We're launching the centre today, but we already have, as the Premier made clear, one project underway and another one about to start. I wonder if you wouldn't mind sharing with us some information about those two projects, Julie.
Sure. So thank you, Premier Marshall, for talking about our smart grid project. And we're very happy to be starting that project because you are the leaders in renewable energy, smart grid, and we are excited to learn. We know a lot about cyber resiliency, so we're going to bring some testing ideas and architecture plans to kind of work together and literally learn from each other and see how we can support making your system stronger. So we're thrilled about that, but the other project that we are working on, and happily with Mo and Dtex as well in partnership, we are absolutely excited, started a kickoff this past week, and that is studying behaviors, whether they be good behaviors or bad behaviors, amongst a distributed remote workforce. And we think that this, you know, as we're all living this now and will probably live in the future for some time, a remote and distributed work environment, whether it be through necessity or people making life choices to be working more remotely. And we need to have a very strong cybersecurity system, and we really need to understand the insider threat and insider trust amongst those remote systems. So we are absolutely thrilled about that. We're thrilled to be working with Dtex. We're thrilled that we can do this through the Cyber Collaboration Center. We think we can help lots of other organizations and companies. We think we can help our government, other governments, certainly across the Five Eyes, and we're really excited. In fact, I have people, of course, starting that, and I get updates every day, and it's only been, you know, I guess the past 6 days that we've started. So really thrilled.
Fantastic, fantastic. And the project work that we're doing there with MITRE out of the DC area is absolutely work that we expect to transfer down here to directly protect Australian government and Australian industry. So, you know, we will be making some pretty big announcements about that over the next couple of weeks. And Julie, thank you so much for you and your team, both for the energy project and in securing Australia's smart grid and the Insider Threat project. I think these are two big national security interest projects that we're going to be following extremely closely. Rachel, I'm going to go back to you for a second here. You've identified some pretty priority cybersecurity challenges that we can tackle here under the A3C. Specifically, the skills shortage is a major problem that every cybersecurity professional is acutely aware of. There are lots of organizations out there that have programs bringing education around cyber to the fore, but there are still things that are missing. And the A3C here, we're not looking to replicate anything that exists out there. We're looking to fill the gaps. Are you able to share a little bit about your views on that in terms of cyber skills shortage and how we're going to be working to alleviate that?
Sure, thanks. And there's no doubt that cybersecurity is a hot area for employment at the moment. It's not necessarily clear to me how many thousands of jobs we need. I think it changes from time to time, and we have to be conscious of where are we sending people to be skilling in an area where there ultimately be jobs taken over by automation. But what we do know is this: we know that there's a need again for very well qualified graduates. They don't necessarily have to have a PhD, but certainly honours and master's graduates. We know that there is also a deep need to reskill executives. So that's where micro-credentialing comes in as well, and the TAFE programs that are run. What we ultimately need, and I think all of us are part of this, doing this identification and risk identification, is we know that these are the careers of the future. We know that the federal, certainly the federal ministry has said that there will be changes to STEM programs and how much will be funded. The real danger is getting in early. We now know that the number of students studying STEM-based subjects has really dropped in the last few years. So it's important that even all of us, and this is why the A3C Centre is so important, is that kids in Year 11 and Year 12 can look at that centre and be really inspired by what it represents, that we really inspire both girls and boys to share a love of technical things, and not just that, because we do need the good lawyers and the good writers and everything else. But it's really important that we inspire a sense of purpose and a sense of mission in young people. And it's not just something to do with computers. And it's through things like the energy of the Premier, that when he speaks about it, he is really excited about it. It's like all of us here in the room, my co-panellists, is that we recognise that there's excitement around doing a career in this. And whether it's 7,000 or 17,000, it's really important we steer those enthusiastic people to a job that is right for them at the moment. One of the things we're looking at, and we will work with others, is micro-credentialing. So that's taking people who are already skilled and skilling them a little bit more. It could be taking a bunch of lawyers who really want to learn about tech law or data security law. It could be taking diplomats and giving them a more nuanced view of certain tech issues in the region. It could be people in your organisation, Mo, who may have a particular skill set, but we just need to shape them a bit more. As I said before, you can't hurry long-term research, but at the same time, there are some bits we can do, particularly post-COVID, to potentially repurpose some people's skills so that they are in other areas. I think what I really love, and particularly having a daughter who's moving into year 11 who wants to do software engineering, is we've got to really keep the young people excited and passionate, and this thing about not being good at maths and making sure that we really start to bring people up. So those 17,000 jobs, I'm sure the Premier wants them all in the great state of South Australia, but the 17,000 jobs, wherever they may be across the country, are filled by people who just love jumping out of bed every day, love what they do, and see the great things going on, whether it's at your centre, whether it's at our universities, whether it's anywhere, that they get a sense of excitement and purpose about this new world that's coming down the track.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rachel. And that's every one of our responsibility. That's not just Rachel and my responsibility. That's all of us going out there, sharing with our own kids, with our nieces and our nephews and their friends, every chance we get an opportunity. This is an exciting industry. It's an important industry where you get to be able to protect all of our citizens, all of our information, our intellectual property and our personal data. So, please get out there and do your part to help and encourage our young people to consider this as a future opportunity for them. Tobias, back to you, please. Obviously, international partners are core to the strategy for the A3C, but if we look at it from their perspective, and we heard from Julie and why she's so excited, but MITRE is pretty deep in this space already. But for other international organisations, why do you think this could be such an important opportunity for them to get involved?
Sure. I actually, I just wanted to pick up on a point that Rachel made. I totally agree. Diplomats we do need more finessing in the tech space, and the more help we can have, the better. And like immediately, I want to extend you an invitation, Rachel, to come in and speak to us here at DFAT, and come and talk to not only our senior staff, but some of our broader junior staff as well, to talk to them about what it is that you do and what it is you think we should be doing as diplomats more clearly. The more tech-minded individuals and leaders like yourself that we have, really the better for the diplomatic community. And I think it also goes to the point that it's such a core issue. And it's music to my ears to hear about, the kinds of things that are going on currently in our ecosystem. Because, what am I dealing with, Mo? You're talking about the broader international environment. One thing that we concentrate on a huge amount here through this position and my team is looking at how do we cyber cooperate. In the background, you can see the cyber cooperation program. It's a core part of our work here. And the Australian government's invested close to $50 million in reaching out, in upskilling, in uplifting understanding and capability around our region. It's not just a team sport here in Australia, it's also a team sport internationally. So to hear of the development of these kinds of course materials, the capabilities that exist, well, I want to be able to get on the front foot and share those with partners. And one of the fascinating things fascinating and also challenging aspects of working in the Indo-Pacific writ large is that it's one of the most diverse regions, not just for the kind of cultural, ethnic diversity that we share, but also in terms of that economic connectivity piece, where we have some of the least connected countries anywhere on the planet, all the way up to some of the most hyper-connected, sophisticated countries you're ever going to meet, who are really ahead of the curve. Now, playing into that means that that's not only a rich threat environment, but also means that it's an environment that we need to be assisting through our private sector, through our academics, through government channels, to ensure that our partners are developing their own cybersecurity approaches and cyber resilience approaches through policy and through technologies. And of course, I'll make no bones about it. I want those to be, as far as possible, Australian companies, Australian academic institutions that are working with us to do that, because that brand that we should keep referring back to is vital to take out into the region. So Look, another thing I would say, you said, Mo, there was a call to arms that I made earlier on. Another call to arms is, I would say, for those that are interested, we need more private sector engagement in some of the nuts and bolts of areas like standard setting. It's become ever more increasingly obvious that standard setting bodies like the International Telecommunications Union are becoming central to the way that tech futures are potentially going to be shaped. They're hard yards to do the work, but vital yards that we all need to progress. And as government, to be frank, we need more assistance from the private sector in understanding aspects of that work, because it does get very technical very, very quickly. So the more collaboration we can take into the mix, the stronger positioning we will have. So maybe it's a slight far cry from the making of your day-to-day money, but what it does illustrate is that willingness to engage in the global tech shaping environment, and that's something that obviously we as Australia and the Australian government are thinking deeply about at the moment, and stand by for new reinvigorated international engagement strategies on this front. And I made that I think I made that call to arms quite clearly as well last year when I was lucky enough to be in Adelaide. But the more help, assistance and buy-in we can get from industry, the better positioned we are going to be as a country going forward.
Well, Tobias, I think you have definitely harnessed that energy to get behind you, and that call to arms is being heard loud and clear from inside this room, and I'm sure from the folks that are joining us via dial-in today. And I hope all of you can see how proud we should be to have an ambassador like Tobias with the passion and the strength that he's got and the conviction that he's got for this cause. Really, really great to have your support, Tobias, and thank you so much for the service that you've given to the country over the last couple of years. And Julie, obviously, thank you for dialing in. It's very late for you in your part of the world, and I don't know if any of you guys noticed, but Julie is really a fan of Australia. If you look behind her, you can see an Indigenous piece of art there. So thank you very much for all your support in all the many different ways. And Rachel, given your huge depth of experience and breadth of experience in both private sector in Australia as a leader in cybersecurity as well as in the government sector, your experience and your knowledge and your support is vital to us here. And, please, everybody, put your hands together for these three amazing leaders. And obviously, you guys are welcome to stay on for the rest of the proceedings here. But now I would like to turn to the man in the hot seat, as the Premier put it, Mr. Hai Tran, please.
Okay. Well, thank you today for coming today to celebrate this amazing achievement. I'd like to acknowledge everyone who's had a hand in bringing us all together, particularly the board, Kim Scott, Alistair McGibbon, Jeff Rawsham, Libby Day, Michelle Price, and Interim CEO Mark Oldham. Also, thank you, Premier Stephen Marshall and Minister David Pisoni, for your support. I would have never imagined to be in a position where I can see so much energy and passion from government, industry, and private sector and academia. When I left WA, I was told, just be mindful of coming over to South Australia, just contain your enthusiasm a bit. You can get a bit over-enthusiastic. But I tell you what, after meeting the Premier and Mo, particularly Mo, everyone around me, I'm going, nah, I can't contain my excitement and my enthusiasm. This is the place to be. And I'm really glad, I'm really excited to be back in South Australia. I left here 30 years ago as a schoolboy, and I've come back to a truly amazing place. And I can't wait to get started in my new role. I'm absolutely passionate about cyber. You can't get me to shut up about it. When I used to speak to my colleagues at WA Police, they would glaze their eyes as I spoke about cyber. And we all know that in law enforcement, information is gold. It is critical. We are holding the public's information they trust implicitly to a police force. But yet, we don't see the threat. It's there. And just because we don't see an outage, we don't see an impact, it doesn't mean it's not there. So having the Prime Minister and the Premier put focus on cyber is exciting for me. For too long, cyber security has been an afterthought. But thanks to the Premier's vision and leadership, the A3C will equip organisations with cybersecurity capability to enable technology in business. From today, we will first think cyber. We are open for business. There are many ways you can get involved with the A3C, including membership and partnership opportunities that will give you access to the Cyber Training Academy, the Cyber Test Range, and our collaboration program. We've partnered up with government, industry, and academia to co-create innovative training courses that will help senior executives, industry professionals, and those looking to start a career in fighting cybercrime. It is amazing to see a world-class cyber test range here in South Australia that will provide security testing of equipment bound for industries such as defence, critical infrastructure, and of course space, the final frontier. We're taking enrolments now for the first NIST Incident Response and Digital Forensics course in collaboration with AZUN and the University of Adelaide. It's commencing at the end of the month. I invite you to visit our website, a3c.co, and sign up for more information on opportunities to innovate, collaborate, and educate. I look forward to working with you all to make cyber a safe place for us all. Thank you.
Thanks, Hai. It's truly fantastic to have you here, and that extra burst of energy will propel us forward to the next level. So guys, in closing here today, I think it's pretty clear to everyone what an amazing opportunity this is. And it certainly wouldn't have happened without every one of you that's been here in the room today and has been with us on this journey for the last 18 months, 2 years and beyond. We can't do it alone. This takes a village, and we need the whole village. That means the whole country, right? So the focus, while we are based here in Adelaide, we are based here on Lot 14, and this is a state government initiative, we need the whole country behind us. We need to collaborate. We need to bring down all the barriers, all the silos, and we need to start working together. And that is truly what has got us to this point right now. So it's truly time to roll up our sleeves. For those of you who've had the sleeves rolled up, let's keep going. And for those of you that are just coming in to help us right now, let's get moving. Right, so please start off by joining me for some afternoon tea. We're going to spread out in a socially distanced manner. We have 3 different areas across the centre that you can join us for some afternoon tea. But as a final note, I would just like to thank the entire team that's put this together here at the A3C. It truly has been an amazing experience working with all of you over the last few months to see this come together. So thank you once again, and I'm looking forward to working with every one of you into the future. Thank you very much.